Welcome to Healthspan Digest. In the next 20 to 30 minutes, I'm going to leave you with one action item you can start today to extend your health span. This weekly podcast is dedicated to translating the science of health and longevity into realistic and easy to follow steps. Our topics range from nutrition to exercise to sleep and healthy habits to navigating stress, injuries, and limited time. And here's the disclaimer. This is not medical advice. It's just my observations from a nearly 30-year career in the rehab and fitness industries. And with that, let's get rolling. Longevity, performance, cardiovascular health through combining zone 2 training and high intensity training. So in just a couple of hours a week, I mean like 5 hours a week, you can get a massive benefit. I'm going to share the science and I'm going to share results on what's worked for me. Again, not taking a ton of time, but to have very real, measurable cardiovascular benefits and performance benefits in just a couple of hours a week. My name is Aaron Shaw. I'm from Healthspan Physio Coaching, and I work with clients on an individual one-on-one consultation, one-off consultations, as well as I have a handful of coaching clients that I've worked with for years. And these are people that are short on time, have really ambitious goals on extending their life, extending their health span, extending their performance. And my passion, my personal and very selfish passion, is to learn as much as I can about health span. Health span is the length of time within our lifespan that we are healthy, active, and vibrant. And as a middle-aged guy, this is very, very important to me. Today, I really want to cover what has been very successful for me, very successful for my coaching clients, and is, of course, 100% backed by science. And this is a simple training plan, a very simple plan that I'm going to share with you that you can follow to improve your cardiovascular health, to improve your longevity, to improve your health span. And this is going to be valuable whether you are a 25-year-old competitive cyclist or somebody who's interested in competitive cycling and wants to really get the most return on their physical investment. This information is going to be very valuable to you. If you are 75 years old, 80 years old, this is also going to be critically important for you to learn and listen to as well. We're going to talk about a way that within 5 hours a week or so, you can improve your cardiovascular health. We're talking about the efficiency of how your heart works. We're talking about speeding recovery after exercise, after a strenuous activity. We're talking about having metabolic benefits such as burning fat and controlling blood sugar. We're talking about improving blood flow, which is what really provides nutrients to your working muscles. So this is vitally important to all of us. What I would ask you to do is comment on this video if you're watching this on YouTube, or message me if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, and tell me what percentage of your schedule, what percentage of your week of training do you spend training in zone 2, an endurance level of effort? So what percentage of your training week do you spend training in zone 2, endurance? We're going to break down heart rate training zones today. We're going to talk about exactly what zone 2 means. And if you're an endurance athlete, you've probably been clubbed over the head with this, but I want to really kind of make it crystal clear on the very real, undisputed benefits of this training zone and the value of the training zone. We're going to dive into the harder training zones, which is going to be really kind of mostly focusing on zone 4. So that's going to be uncomfortable effort, but also thankfully with this plan I'm going to share with you is going to be a very short amount of time that you need to spend any time in this zone. And I'm going to leave you with one thing you can do today. This one thing you can do today is just going to be following this very simple plan that I'm going to lay out for you that, again, within 5 hours a week at a minimum. I mean, certainly if you can invest more than that for your cardiovascular health, and especially if you are performance driven, more would be better, but I can tell you from very personal experience, 5 hours a week will move the needle. For example, a couple of weeks ago got my VO2 tested. So that was getting on a bike, putting a mask on, going to this little laboratory kind of place. And they put me through this training program or this test where I was pedaling harder and harder and harder over a couple of minutes time. And what this does is identifies your maximum amount of oxygen that, your body can take in, your body can utilize. And there are ranges for, being unhealthy and being very healthy. And it's also broken down into ages. So you can get for a person of your age, you should have a certain range of VO2, a volume of oxygen that your body can consume. I was very happy after this test to see that mine was in the highest category for a guy my age, in my 50s. And so that's great. And so to me, that was the test of proving that what I'm doing is giving me the result that I want, the health benefit that I want. And that's just, I can look at that in a couple of different ways. One is again, I'm an occasionally competitive cyclist, mountain biker these days. That having that higher VO2 number is great. So I can think, oh, that's really going to help. I leverage that, I utilize that when I do compete. But even more importantly, it's a sign of my health span potential. My health span potential is very much related to how much oxygen my body can utilize. And I want to take that into very, very old age. But it takes a little bit of work, a little bit of attention, which is what we're going to cover today. I can also tell you from personal experience from following this plan that my power output, my ability to produce energy, specifically through my legs, through my body when I'm on my bike, has improved dramatically in about an 8-week block. When I first started doing this, I really kind of got back on the bike and started doing this. For about 8 weeks, I spent a chunk of time following this plan, and my power output, which I could track on my indoor trainer, increased 50 watts when I'm pedaling in what we call zone 2, an endurance level of effort, which is, as we'll talk about in a minute, not a lot of effort. It's very sustainable. It's very doable. It is conversational. Your breathing and heart rate allows you to still have conversation, so you're not huffing and puffing. But to pedal along in that effort, again, pretty comfortable. The amount of power that I'm able to put out now compared to when I first started this program is 50 watts higher. So I'm not pedaling harder, same level of effort, massive increase in power output. That is between those 50 watts, that's very clearly like a performance measure, but also with those 50 watts plus this VO2 measure, which is good for performance, obviously, but also very good for an indicator of cardiovascular health. Those are great. And it was done in a simple, very easy to follow program, which I'm going to tell you what that is. But first, let's understand what are heart rate training zones. So heart rate training zones means it's in reference to what somebody's maximum heart rate is. So we all have a maximum heart rate. And for those of us that have touched that maximum heart rate, it is not comfortable. It's very, very hard. You kind of suffer for a period of time to get to that point. But whatever your maximum heart rate is, the heart rate zones are based off of percentages of that maximum heart rate. So if you were asleep, if you're sitting on the couch reading a book, you're probably in zone 1. That's very low. It's your just sort of low at rest heart rate. Zone 2, which I'm going to talk about here, zone 2 is, we would say, moderate intensity. And this is typically 65 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. Conversational pace, 65 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. So if you were pedaling your bike down the greenway next to your friend, and you're not coasting, you're actually pedaling, you're working a little bit, but you're having a conversation and nobody's huffing and puffing and, spit and snot dribbling out of your face, you're probably in zone 2. You're probably in a conversational pace. You're probably at 70% of your maximum heart rate. And that is awesome. The benefits of spending time in this zone 2 is you have improved aerobic capacity. So the first thing that happens is it allows you to have better oxygen delivery to your muscles. So you're in a aerobic zone. Your body depends on oxygen to function in this zone 2. Again, 70% of your maximum heart rate. And it allows you to do this over a long period of time. If you were going to go for 45 minutes, an hour, a couple hours, a hike or a ride or whatever it is, whatever aerobic activity you're doing, it's just that. I can't even help but say it. It's aerobic. It is utilizing oxygen. which is great. Training in this zone enhances your fat oxidation. So what that means is your body is actually utilizing fat as an energy source, which we all want. And so it utilizes fat as energy. We all have a bunch of stored energy, which is great. When you can stick it and stay in this zone 2 and be honest about staying in this zone 2, 70% of your maximum heart rate, your body will focus on burning through fat for energy and conserve glycogen stores and preserve these sugars that we need for higher intensity efforts. It'll save that, which we're going to talk about tapping into those glycogen stores here in a minute. But as long as you're training in zone 2, 70% of your max heart rate, you're utilizing fat, which is great. Another benefit is mitochondrial function. Mitochondria, you may have heard of this. It is their little energy producing cells, if you will, little power plants, I guess. They're little power plants in our body, and it really promotes function of this mitochondria in your cells. But you have to stay in zone 2 to get that benefit. You're investing in a power plant when you spend time in zone 2. Now, there will be times when we go into higher zones, when you do higher effort things, where you're going to want these power plants to really kick in and start producing power. But first of all, we have to build the foundation. We have to build the power plants. And if you do nothing but hop off and doing zone 3, 4, 5, high intensity, or even just moderately high intensity stuff, you're not building these mitochondria. You're not building these power plants. These power plants are built when we stay in zone 2. Invest in that. Think about that. Investing in zone 2 enhances your recovery from any sort of physical activity because it does increase your blood flow and helps deliver nutrients to your muscles. It increases your capillary density. And what that means is that when you spend time in this zone 2, you grow little blood vessels to all of your muscles, and you'll get even more vascularity, more oxygen delivered to your muscles, which is great, especially when you do want to do things that are more vigorous, more challenging, more physically challenging, because you'll have power plants from the mitochondria, and you'll have the fuel source, because you'll have all of these little blood vessels that are growing in to feed the muscles to do whatever activity you want to do. Spending time in zone 2 will also help lower your resting heart rate. It will increase your heart rate variability, which is another great subject I did a previous episode on. But both are really good indicators of cardiovascular health. So it reduces stress on the heart. So if you can perform, if you can function, if you can do things, especially vigorous things, with less stress on the heart, again, whether you're 25 or 85, it is good. That's what we want. We want efficiency with our cardiovascular system. Ultimately, there is a relationship of how robust your cardiovascular system can function at an endurance level at 70 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. That indicates really your longevity, your health span. It is a marker of health. So that's zone 2, where that is going to be a very big part of this program that I explained to you here in a minute. Just recognize that it takes discipline for those of us that are endurance athletes to get into this zone and to refrain from pushing into higher than 70 or 75% of your max heart rate. Most people who, especially if you're involved in group rides or group runs, or you just go willy-nilly and train and do whatever you want, that's fine, but you're probably not spending very much time, not consistent time in this zone. And you're spending time in zones that are a little bit more challenging, zone 3, zone 4, or bouncing around in different training zones, which is fine if that's what you want to do and you want to just go play and have fun and you're not concerned about improving your capacity. That's totally cool. But if in your mind, if you're thinking, I want to have better performance, I want to have better cardiovascular health, you have to spend chunks of time in this zone 2, 70% of your max heart rate. I'll step off that soapbox momentarily. So now let's get into a hard training zone. And this would be, you may hear high intensity interval training or VO2 training. And this is where you're going to be spending time, not much, but you're going to be spending some time in zone 4. So 4 out of the 5 zones. So zone 4 is 80 to 90% of your maximum heart rate. So 80 to 90%. It is uncomfortable. This is the zone, and you may hear like lactate or lactic acid. So what does that mean? So in this zone, your body, again, we've sort of bypassed the zone where your body can utilize oxygen to produce energy, and now we're in an anaerobic zone, which means that there's, anaerobic means without oxygen. So once you're in these higher zones, specifically zone 4, 80+% of your maximum heart rate, your body is relying on energy sources that are stored in your muscles. Because of the demands that you have from going at that intensity, your body cannot break down fat quick enough to provide the energy you need. So it just takes energy that you already have stored in your muscles, which is finite. Compared to oxygen, as long as you're not at, altitude or something, there's plenty of oxygen around. But there's a finite amount of both. There's plenty of oxygen around, and for everybody that I know, we all have plenty of fat to use for energy sources. So it's all readily available. Now, when you're in zone 4 or doing moderate and higher levels of intensity, now we're taking energy sources that are stored in our muscles, and this energy source is limited, and we burn through it pretty quickly. So just need to be mindful when we're in this zone. So in this zone, your body produces lactic acid, which is good, which is fine. I think everybody freaks out and think, that lactic acid burn we're familiar with. What that feels like is your muscles feel, I mean, you can certainly get like the burning sort of sensation. So that is, I think what we think acid, you think burning. So like, oh, my legs are burning from lactic acid. Yes, that's definitely a sensation. The main sensation that I think of is that like a loss of energy. Like you just don't have, there's just this great sense of fatigue that you're trying to push through. And that means that the amount of lactic acid that is being produced from this level of effort exceeds your body's ability to clear out the lactic acid. So you start sort of bubbling up with lactic acid, if you will. There is a way for your body to actually utilize lactic acid as a fuel. So it is not completely a bad thing. I mean, lactic acid is a very natural product. It's very natural in our body, and our body can actually utilize this lactic acid as a fuel source. It's through this process it's called the Cori cycle, CORI, which I'm not going to bother to bore you to death with that, but it can be utilized. But the key with spending time in this training zone, in this zone 4, in the 85 or 90% of your maximum heart rate, is that you are training your body to flush out the lactic acid quicker, to be more efficient with flushing out that lactic acid, which means you can continue at a high level of effort longer. You're not accumulating so much of that lactic acid. So it is worth investing time for your cardiovascular health, and certainly for your performance. If you're so driven to improve your cardiovascular performance, your physical performance for any sort of endurance activity, then you're going to want to improve this zone 4 training. The last zone, which I think is kind of built into the high intensity interval training that I'll talk about here, is zone 5. And that is 90 to 100% of your maximum heart rate. The reality is that's only very limited access to this. You can only do that for very short bursts of time. So if you're going to spend any time in a hard effort, most of the time you're going to be kind of probably dancing between zone 4 and zone 5. So you're going to be between 80 and 100% of your max heart rate, knowing that once you're up in like the 90% of your max heart rate, you have probably a handful of seconds. This isn't going to be, you don't hang out at 95% of your max heart rate for 10 minutes. Doesn't happen. You may red line at that 95 or 100% for a couple of seconds, then it's going to drop down a little bit. Then you may be able to push it back up a little bit, sustain it for a little bit longer, then it's going to drop back down. That is when your body is at the limit. So it cannot keep functioning at that level. High intensity interval training, as opposed to zone 2, high intensity interval training, we're talking zone 4, zone 5, 80+% of your max heart rate, but it has, again, awesome benefits. You're going to be able to teaching your body how to produce more power, how to really maximize the aerobic capacity and anaerobic capacity of your body. When you combine the zone 2 training with high intensity interval training, it's like the recipe for cardiovascular efficiency. Your VO2 max will increase, which again is a critical measure of your aerobic fitness and overall cardiovascular health. You're going to be improving blood flow to the muscles, which improves recovery. By combining the two, you're going to really be setting yourself up for continually being able to progress and adapt. And what I see with the athletes that I either hang out with or work with is that they tend to spend most of the time, this is again mostly endurance athletes, but spend most of the time not going easy enough to be in zone 2, not going easy enough to reap all those benefits of mitochondria and capillary density and efficiency. So they're not going easy enough for that, but also not going hard enough to reap the benefits of true high intensity training. And so on a typical group ride or a group run, most people are in the middle zone, which would be like a zone 3, let's say. And it's utilizing a little bit of fat as an energy source, a little bit of, stored energy, glycogen for a higher intensity energy source, but it's not really helping either one very much. You're kind of missing the value of focusing on just one or just the other. Back when I was racing full time on a road bike, we would call these junk miles because you're not really getting anything out of it. And I will, again, put in the caveat that if you simply interested in going out, playing with friends, doing your group run, doing your group ride, and you don't care about improving your performance, then ignore all this. Just go play. Or conversely, if you only have an hour and a half, 2 hours a week to invest in your cardiovascular health, or certainly if you only have 2 hours a week to go ride your bike, then don't worry about training in zones. Just go out and play. But to be clear, if you do want to improve your performance and you're short on time, you don't have all day to train, you're not a sponsored athlete. If you have, let's say, 5 hours a week, this is where we're going to get to the punchline here. If you have 5 hours a week or more, it'd be awesome if you have more. But if you have 5 hours a week to train, here's what I would suggest you do to improve your performance and to improve your cardiovascular health. 25-year-old competitive athlete, middle-aged dude with a lot on his plate and not much time, that's me. Or whether you are long retired and you really want to boost your cardiovascular health and you only have 5 hours or so, here's what I suggest you do. You're going to do 4 hours of zone 2 training. 4 hours. And you can do those in 4 1-hour blocks, or you can, crank out an hour and 15, do 75 minutes on, some of those days. So you don't have to do maybe quite as many days of training, but 4 of those hours are going to be spent at 70% of your maximum heart rate. 4 hours at 70% of your maximum heart rate. That leaves you 1 other hour. That other hour, which would be 1 day per week, you're going to do high intensity interval training. And that is going to be getting your heart rate up to that uncomfortable zone where it's going to be 85%, let's say, 80 to 85% of your maximum heart rate. It could be on a bike, it could be running, any sort of cardiovascular activity, but you're going to get your heart rate up there into that uncomfortable range. You're going to hold it there for at least 4 minutes. So that's 4 minutes in an uncomfortable heart rate zone, and then you're going to rest for 4 minutes, and then you're going to repeat that. 4 more minutes, high intensity, 4 minutes rest, 4 minutes, high intensity, 4 minutes rest. If you were just starting out on a program like this, and especially if you're not accustomed to really kind of pushing yourself that hard, it is okay to say the first time you do this workout, just do 4 minutes of a sustained hard effort and call it quits. Just kind of feel what that feels like. We're playing the long game here. We're talking about Healthspan. This isn't a overnight performance, overnight massive, beautiful cardiovascular health. This is the long game. Cut yourself some slack. It's fine to say, today I'm going to try this high intensity effort. So I'm going to get on my bike, or I'm going to get on the trail and go for a run, whatever it is. And I'm going to put in an effort. And this is also key of this here, is putting in an effort that you can sustain for all 4 minutes. And what that means is when you look at your watch and you say, okay, for the next 4 minutes, I'm going to get my heart rate up to 85% of the maximum heart rate, recognize that the heart rate will take about a minute or so, even just to kind of ramp up to get to that uncomfortable level. And that's where you want to stay. But if you take those first 30 seconds and sprint like like it's the end of the world and you're going as hard as you possibly can for those first 30 seconds, you're going to blow up and you're never going to be able to sustain that for a full 4 minutes. So it takes a little bit of practice to learn how to gauge how to gauge your effort. This is where practice comes in. So try 4 minutes, ramp yourself up. Once you get to that, the first minute, you may feel like not that big a deal. It's pretty sustainable. Second minute, assuming your effort is sustained, you're not going harder or easier, you're just sort of sustained. Second minute gets a little bit uncomfortable. Third minute of this level of intensity, definitely not comfortable. By this point, you're huffing and puffing, your heart rate's elevated quite a bit, you're breathing in and out pretty quickly. That fourth minute of the 4 minute interval is really uncomfortable and it feels like it lasts a long time. That at the end of that 4 minutes, pull the plug, go easy for 4 minutes. You've just done one interval. That's a high intensity interval right there. And if you can repeat that, so if you do just one your first workout session doing this, great. The next time you do it, try 2. Next time you do it, try 3. Build your way up. Every time you take this 4-minute block and you can invest in the level of effort and energy, you are making massive adaptations to your VO2 max, the volume of oxygen your body can utilize. You're adapting your body, you're adapting your cardiovascular system in a way that is going to extend your health span, extend your lifespan, and really give you more capacity to do, obviously, any day-to-day activity. You'll have more capacity for that, but you'll also have more capacity for the very challenging things like athletic endeavors. So you have these 5 hours. You could break that up into 3 to 4 sessions of zone 2 per week. This is an hour to an hour and a half per session. And then 1 session of high intensity interval training. Short, intense intervals to start with, I would at least do equal rest. So 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off. That is it. That is the absolute, I want to say in a sense, it's like the bare minimum. So if you really, really want to move the needle, if you follow this program and you do this for 6 weeks, definitely within 8 weeks, you will feel like a different person. Your body will adapt in a way that you will have measured sensations of more strength, more capacity on the bike or running, whatever your endeavor is. It's just day-to-day stuff. I mean, you're literally at this point, if you follow this for 8 weeks, you're going to have more little power plant cells, the mitochondria in your body. You're going to have more blood vessels fueling your muscles, fueling this mitochondria. And so you've got this nice big foundation that continues to grow, especially if you stick with this even longer. And those high intensity is going to really kind of like give you that peak of the pyramid that is based upon that big foundation of zone 2. It is so hard for endurance athletes to stick with zone 2 training, and it's at the detriment to performance. So the punchline that I would have for everybody is that if you have only an hour or 2 a week to go play and you like to, hang out with friends doing running or cycling or whatever, just go do it. Don't worry about a structured training plan. It's not for you. That's totally fine. If you want to invest a period of time and actually end up performing better, so I'll use cycling and specifically mountain biking because that's my jam right now, but to use mountain biking as an example, if you want to invest 6 or 8 weeks of following a program like this, I promise you, if you're not already doing something like this, I promise you will be a different rider in 6 or 8 weeks. That is going to be easier to get up and over hills. It is going to be easier to be in the lead group as opposed to getting dropped. You're going to recover faster from any sort of effort you do with anything. You will have absolute physical change in 8 weeks. 5 hours a week. That's it. That's all you need. What you do, if you can do 5 hours structured in this way and you still have more time to go out, ride and play, do whatever you want. It's okay to do those, as I said earlier, like those junk miles. Yeah, do those on other days. That's fine. But as long as you can stick with, a couple, 3 days a week of getting in those hours of zone 2, get one good structured high intensity workout. And then if you still have more time, do anything. That's extra credit. That's the big picture. The nuances of this is, of course, incorporating rest, recovery, nutrition, electrolytes, injury prevention exercises, and a whole slew of other things to fine tune it. But if nothing else, without getting too caught up in the weeds, 5 hours a week, mostly zone 2, an occasional zone 5, zone 4 or 5, really high intensity, your body will change. Try that for a couple of weeks. Comment and let me know how it goes. And if you're a little hesitant, or if you really want kind of some more information on the nuances of that or how to deal with that, send me a message, comment on the video, comment or leave me a message on the podcast platform. I'm happy to respond. I read everything, respond to everything. But I can tell you from, first of all, from many, many years of racing and riding and being an endurance athlete, that this works. And now, as my life has changed from pretty much racing full time to do a bunch of other stuff and not having a ton of time, that from my personal experience, I get far more performance, far more physical benefit than, I want to say, almost, I get more benefit than I should, because I don't spend a whole lot of time training. But if 5 hours a week is what I got, and I can just be mindful of what I'm doing with that time, whether that's indoor on a trainer or outside on the trails, when done well, when done wise, I have a super fun time doing it. I'm keeping my foundation strong. I'm working on my VO2 max, and the results for me speak for themselves, not only in how I feel, but I'm the nerd that does go out and get VO2 tested on occasion. So I get actual real scientific data. It's not just how I feel, but it's a win-win. And you can do it too, whether you've never trained before a day in your life, whether you've been training for a long time, whether you're kind of off and on, like most people are kind of off and on. This works. Science shows it. Give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. If you have any other questions about any of the pillars of Healthspan, please send me a message. So exercise, sleep, nutrition, mental well-being, preventative care. Those are the pillars. Those are the pillars that are going to help us live a long, healthy, vibrant life. So I love talking about it. So I love researching. So please subscribe to this channel, like this video, subscribe to my podcast. I'm forever grateful, and look forward to the next episode. Thanks.